The plot centers on a female officer in the Army who is the first woman to join U.S. Navy SEAL training, despite doubts from her superiors. She surprises all by passing the test while many men drop out. The film starts as a Senate Armed Services Committee interviews a retired officer named Theodore Hayes for Navy Secretary. The current discussion topic is the limited role women play in the Navy, and Hayes tries to justify this view. Suddenly, Lillian DeHaven, a Texas senator leading this hearing, cuts Hayes's weak speech short. She counters his points, stating that the Navy's approach to women in the Army overall has always been poor. Hello, cinema lover. It's Nacho here. You are watching Nacho Movie Recaps. To back up her claim, she reveals a classified document called the Lark Report and distributes copies to the hearing members. The senator continues with her findings, reading sections from the report. It includes statements from top Navy officials who depict women soldiers as less capable and often make sexist comments. Following this shocking hearing, the Navy urgently schedules a private meeting with DeHaven. She agrees to meet and soon sits with officials from the Department of Defense, or DoD, in her office. But the DoD representatives are against women in the Navy and have a plan to sabotage DeHaven's efforts. They offer an integration plan that states if a woman can pass any Navy evaluation program, she can join their ranks. DeHaven knows it's a trap, as the DoD will choose the toughest program for the female trainee and make an example of her, but she agrees anyway, knowing the publicity from this program will only advance her career. Outside the Senate office, the DoD officials meet with Hayes and discuss which program to pick for DeHaven's female trainee. They agree on the U.S. Navy Combined Reconnaissance Team, or C.R.T., a brutal selection process where nearly 60% of candidates drop out before Week 4, with the third week, known as Hell Week, being particularly grueling. These male officials are certain no woman will last beyond the first week. The scene shifts to a Navy satellite control room where a topographic analyst, Lieutenant Jordan O'Neill, is helping retrieve a SEAL team from a combat zone. The control room has lost contact with the team, and one official suggests sending more support to rescue them. But this would take 18 minutes, as the support team would need that time to reach the rescue location. However, O'Neill suggests changing the pickup point entirely. She notes that the SEAL team consists of skilled soldiers who would search for safer exits. So, even if communication with the team is cut off, they should seek a new rescue point. She then quickly examines satellite images of the area and identifies a spot that cuts the rescue time in half. Her plan is approved, and 9 minutes later, the SEAL team reconnects with the control room from the exact location O'Neill suggested. They are rescued right away, averting a disaster. Meanwhile, Senator DeHaven and her team review a list of candidates for the Navy's C.R.T. program. She dismisses a triathlete for being too lean and a champion powerlifter for being too muscular, like a man. She wants the trainee to appear traditionally feminine to show that any woman can serve in the Navy, and women don't need to look strong to do so. She spots Lieutenant Jordan O'Neill, who has notable achievements as an Olympic triathlete candidate and is academically gifted. She also fits DeHaven's vision of being traditionally feminine. After a busy day at work, Lieutenant O'Neill meets her fiancé, Lieutenant Commander Royce Harper, who serves as an operational officer in the Navy. He congratulates her. Her fiancé congratulates her for successfully navigating the sketchy situation, but also warns her not to get too involved in such matters, as she is not a soldier, but an intelligence officer. Just then, O'Neill receives a call and is asked to urgently meet Senator DeHaven in her office. In the next scene, the senator gives the papers regarding the C.R.T. program to O'Neill and explains what the whole deal is. She says that if O'Neill gets through this training, it will open the doors for women to join the Navy in the future. That night, the lieutenant returns home and discusses the idea with her fiancé, Royce, but he doesn't seem very enthusiastic about it for various reasons. For starters, the Navy C.R.T. is an extremely difficult program that may leave O'Neill with long-lasting physical injuries. She will also have to share training and living space with several men who will undoubtedly objectify her. But if she gets selected somehow, she will be deployed on active duty for a long time. Roy says he may not have the patience to wait for her that long. This hurts O'Neill, who feels like her fiancé is undermining her abilities in their relationship. She is now extra determined to prove everyone wrong and enlist in the C.R.T. program. A few days later, she arrives at the training center, and the commanding officer gives her a separate room away from the dorm where all the male trainees sleep. Word soon gets out that a woman has also been enlisted in the program, and the men are not happy about it. That night, when O'Neill arrives at the mess for dinner, several men scorn and pass misogynistic remarks at her. The next day, the training finally begins, and the commanding officer reiterates that most of the soldiers will not make it to the end of the third week. He then hands over the trainees to Command Master Chief John Urgale, who will be their main training supervisor. He is a very intimidating man and does not seem to care that there is a woman among the group. While checking everyone's uniforms, he recites a D.H. Lawrence poem, Self-Pity, indirectly telling everyone not to feel sorry for themselves. Following this, the trainees are first taught how to carry military-grade boats towards the sea and quickly dismount from them. The rest of the training is as tough as it gets and tests their physical strength through several grueling exercises. Command Master Chief John urges them to quit so that they don't have to suffer further abuse. He has placed a bell at the front of the training yard, and whoever wants to quit has to ring the bell 3 times. O'Neill isn't treated any differently by John, but she can't escape the sexist remarks from the other trainees. Things get even more dire at night as the trainees are given 4 minutes to complete their dinner. All of them rush towards the kitchen and have to fight tooth and nail to get the food on their plates. But just as they begin to eat, the trainers start yelling at them to get back to the grounds. They are forced to shove their food into garbage cans and rejoin the training on empty stomachs. This series of extreme routines continues into the next day. Morning changes into night, and the soldiers are trained to withstand the freezing seawater. It is only after this that they are medically evaluated and allowed to eat the same food they had thrown in the trash can. It is total chaos, but O'Neill sneaks a piece of bread into her pocket and stuffs her mouth with the rest of the cold food. After dinner, Command Master Chief John orders them to write an essay on why they want to join the U.S. Navy. But the test is not as simple as it looks. While the tired and hungry soldiers focus on writing the essay, John plays soothing opera music to make them fall asleep. The ones who end up sleeping will get thrown out of the camp. O'Neill takes a bite of the bread she had earlier hidden, and it helps her stay awake during this test. 15 minutes later, John comes back into the test room and orders them to run back out to the training yard. They are to run an obstacle course that includes staying safe from live firing. O'Neill is informed that she will be given a platform to help her jump over several obstacles. She protests against this as she wants to be treated exactly like everyone else, but her complaints are dismissed as the Army rulebook states that the obstacle height for female cadets should be lower than that of their male counterparts. During the course, John observes O'Neill refusing to use the platforms and instead going through each hurdle like all her teammates. On the wall, climbing obstacles, she helps her teammates by letting them climb on her back. Despite trying her best to work as a unit, her teammates do not pull her up the wall. It is evident that they still resent a woman being allowed to participate in a traditionally masculine space. On the other hand, the 20 hours a day training begins to wear down several soldiers' mental and physical strength. More and more trainees start to quit. But to everyone's surprise, O'Neill still holds strong. However, she still hasn't gotten over the fact that she was given a platform to make the obstacle course easier for her. So she tries to talk to the commanding officer to get herself treated equally in all terms. But she ends up receiving sexist remarks from the officer as well for this. O'Neill's superior makes it clear that he isn't happy about having a woman in his camp. Due to being treated this way, O'Neill goes to a barbershop and cuts her hair, giving up her feminine look. Next, she goes to her separate room, where the male trainees aren't allowed, and packs all her things. She then decides to move into the common hall where all the male trainees sleep. Most of the men in the room have a problem with O'Neill being there, especially because she has brought tampons with her. Nonetheless, Command Master Chief John notices O'Neill's actions and isn't pleased with her approach. The scene suddenly shifts back to Hayes, who has now been elected as the Secretary of the Navy. He and the other men from the Department of Defense aren't thrilled with the news that O'Neill has survived 3 weeks in the camp. Even though this experiment was meant to be secret, her achievements have made it into the news, and the public is calling her G.I. Jane since they don't know her real name. Back at the training facility, things have gotten even more intense, but G.I. Jane is still holding on. In fact, she now trains even harder just to prove all the sexist men wrong. The results are visible as she loses a lot of body fat and becomes muscular. Meanwhile, news reporters are eager to get a story on G.I. Jane, the tough woman enduring the hard Navy training. One day, while O'Neill is showering alone, Command Master Chief John shows up with some news. The most senior member of her team has been hospitalized due to a fractured leg, leaving O'Neill as the most experienced officer in her group, making her the team leader. Elsewhere, DoD officials and Secretary Hayes are frustrated by how O'Neill has outlasted Hell Week and is even going head-to-head with the men, but they still hope she'll quit after the SEER training, which stands for Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape. The SEER training phase begins, and the trainees are dropped out of an airplane in an unknown location. They must reach a target, gather information, and retreat without being caught. Unlike a simple drill to test physical fitness, SEER is designed to train for real-world scenarios. If the trainees request an early extraction or are caught, they will be treated like real prisoners of war. Unfortunately, during the training, 2 members of O'Neill's team are captured when they refuse to follow her orders, and another breaks his leg while rushing back to the safe spot. While trying to help him, O'Neill also gets captured. Despite being just trainees, the officers treat the situation as real and don't even help the guy with the broken leg. They actually torture him to extract information about the location of the other teams, which in this scenario means quitting. When it's O'Neill's turn, she is questioned by none other than Command Master Chief John himself. With her hands tied behind her back, John starts to beat her mercilessly. When another training officer thinks it's getting too violent, John orders him to leave. He then grabs O'Neill by her head and slams her through the door in front of everyone. He drowns her head in the ice-cold water, torturing O'Neill to get her teammates to give up information about the location of the remaining teams. But O'Neill strongly tells her teammates to stay silent. John then escalates the torture and tries to rip her pants off, claiming this could happen in a real situation. Suddenly, O'Neill retaliates and manages to hit John between his legs. She then delivers 2 vicious kicks to his body, but John gets up and knocks her out. He then moves towards her teammates, justifying his actions by saying he's doing this to make her realize that she isn't cut out for fighting. Hearing this nonsense, O'Neill insults John by telling him to kiss her backside. Now, all the male trainees cheer for O'Neill and even mock the command master to kiss their backsides. Having turned a group of mismatched soldiers from various departments into a team, O'Neill finally earns John's respect. The news of G.I. Jane passing the SEER training reaches Senator DeHaven, who is thrilled by the news. Following her display of bravery, O'Neill starts to gain respect from her peers, who now treat her as an equal and as a friend. One day, while she is out with her female friends on a beach, someone secretly takes her pictures. The photos are sent to higher-ups, who question O'Neill's sexuality, accusing her of being a homosexual. She is told that getting her pictures taken with other female officers while she was in training is a disgrace to their organization. As a result, she is told to leave training until the photographs are investigated. O'Neill wants to continue her training and believes someone is trying to sabotage her, but she is told that once she is cleared after the investigation, she can rejoin the training from the start, which means all her previous efforts would be in vain. Infuriated by how everyone is trying to ruin her, O'Neill rings the bell 3 times, signaling that she is voluntarily withdrawing from the program. She then returns home to her fiancé, who has puzzling news to share. He shows her that the anonymous photographs were sent from none other than Senator DeHaven's office, the very person who wanted her to succeed to prove women's empowerment. It turns out the senator was using O'Neill to advance her political career. She wanted O'Neill to succeed just enough to intimidate her male counterparts, and when O'Neill was about to pass, DeHaven used her as a bargaining chip with the Navy to prevent military base closures in her home state of Texas. When O'Neill confronts the senator about this, DeHaven pretends not to know anything, but later admits that she used O'Neill to gain political favors. After hearing it straight from the senator, O'Neill threatens to expose her, saying she isn't afraid to talk to the press about how the senator used a woman to advance her career. With that, O'Neill reports back to training, where she is warmly welcomed by her peers. Now, the final phase of the training begins. Before the final training could start, it is interrupted by an emergency requiring the C.R.T. trainees' immediate support. An observation satellite powered by weapons-grade plutonium has fallen into the Libyan desert. A team of U.S. Army Rangers was dispatched to retrieve the plutonium, but their evacuation plan failed. Now, the trainees are sent to assist the Rangers in their evacuation plan. During the mission, O'Neill is on the verge of being noticed by a Libyan soldier, so to save her, John shoots the soldier, which blows their cover. Now, the Libyan patrol knows about the presence of the U.S. military on their territory, and a confrontation between the two sides breaks out. John ends up far from his team, and when O'Neill sees the team's map, she realizes that the Master Chief is not using the route the others believe he will take. She understands that the Master Chief is taking the wrong direction and is in serious trouble, but O'Neill is there to save the day. With the leader gone, O'Neill steps up, displaying definitive leadership and strategy while rescuing the injured Master Chief. She and her teammate, McCool, pull him out of a kill zone filled with explosives. Soon, they receive backup and helicopter gunships, which deliver the final assault, making the rescue mission a success. All those who participated in the mission are accepted into the C.R.T. In the final scene, Command Master Chief John James Gale gives O'Neill his Navy Cross and a book of poetry containing a short poem, Self-Pity by D.H. Lawrence, as acknowledgement of her accomplishment and in gratitude for rescuing him. You're welcome. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join the Nacho Movie Recaps community for more exciting content. Stay tuned for the latest updates and be part of the conversation. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.